I'm not convinced I know how to read. I've just memorized a lot of words.
The first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club.
True. All life ends in death, which we, as a species, are cursed with knowing, resulting in something. Again, this is really not my field.
It's the Al Travis Show. We love having this next guy on. He's Senator Rob Kupec. Senator, how are you doing up there today in the Fargo area?
Oh, it's a lovely, sub-zero morning here. Par for the course in the winter here.
I've been here a lot. You're the guy who knows a former weather guy. Isn't this even a little early for this kind of cold stuff? I mean, God, it got cold this morning.
It did, but not really. I mean, December, we've had a lot of kind of cushy winters. I think we've gotten a little soft.
All right,
go back a little bit, and it's pretty typical to get some kind of Arctic air in early December. It's also a shock because we had warm air so late into the season. So,
well, the last snow, and I was hoping that was what we had like an inch and a half down here, and the next day it was 60 degrees. I'm like, that was the shortest winter of all time, but I loved it. Now I think we're paying for it.
Yeah.
All right, lots to talk about. And I want to start with this because I want folks to understand I'm not just jumping on this team or whatever. The language that Trump went with, I think it was last Thursday, with calling our governor, we don't even use that word in my house, I'm not going to use it here, mentioning that the governor was not the smartest person he knows. Okay. Governor goes in, wants to get his MRIs. Grown men acting like they're in third grade is all I'm going to say. I'm not big on it. The story today, Trump calling everybody in a certain community garbage. I am not in any way, shape, or form back in the language, the essence of what he's saying is, as far as how he's doing it. But to be quite frank, for the last 10 years or whatever it's been, we've had Trump on. That's probably, I would tell you the same thing. Okay. So I'm not jumping on that. But the news stories this week about Minnesota, well, you're an ad guy. You've heard the phrase, there's no such thing as bad advertising, right? I think we've busted that rule up. I think Minnesota, okay, you were, this is about as bad as it gets for any state in any given week. Would you agree with me? I mean, everybody's covering what's going on in Minnesota right now.
Yeah, I would not, I would not ever say that there's no such thing as bad advertising. There certainly is. I wouldn't go down that road. Yeah, and it's, so here's the difference. The fraud stuff, that is a totally legitimate news story. And the news should be covering that because the way you stop, not only with law enforcement, but spreading sunshine, which is supposed to be what the news business does, spreading light on things that are bad. That also would put the brake on somebody in the future. Maybe there's some guy go, oh, yeah, I'm not going to do that. That's a bad idea.
This is why I like having you on, because I knew you'd have a common sense approach to this. But here's where you might be wrong. I don't know that it's news. It was news to the rest of the world. But you've been coming on here for what, about 6 months? I don't know how long we've been getting back to, right? And I've had people come. We've been talking fraud in Minnesota since the Feeding Our Futures thing. I mean, you can probably go back. This isn't probably news for Minnesotans. It's just, how does the rest of the world catch on? And now they're up in arms. Like, what happened? I was like, well, we've been talking about it here.
Right. And that, there's always that, having worked in the news business, I'd always look at like the national news, no matter what platform it was, and then be like, why all of a sudden, this got your attention today? I don't know why. Polar vortex was, as a weatherman, like we've had polar vortexes forever, and all of a sudden it became like a thing. And I'm like, okay, we did this in college back in the 80s. I learned about this, so somebody knew about it long before this.
Well, we're going to get off track. God love you. So I heard, and maybe you'll know this. This is yesterday was the end of the hurricane season in our hemisphere or something, and we had zero. It's like the first time in forever that there was no landfall of a hurricane in the U.S. Like, okay, back to I don't follow a lot of the history of weather, right, but that seems like a good thing.
Yeah, the crazy thing is we went deep into the alphabet this year again. So lots of storms. But the way the weather pattern was, we used to call them in the business fish storms because that's who they impacted, the fish.
Okay, fair. So I don't want to get off track. Okay, back to what we're talking about. Okay, bad news. So I think a lot of this has to do with Trump, obviously. He starts retweeting or whatever he does, Xing, whatever they call that stuff anymore, some stories that came out. And so on Saturday, I think it was Saturday, may have been Friday, the New York Times comes out and basically writes a story that, again, if you lived in Minnesota and you listen to the Al Travis show, we've discussed all this stuff. This is not news. But then the rest of the world's like, what? $1 billion? What? And so then that gets the thing. Trump jumps on it. Some people with an X account, and I give this a grain of salt. Anybody can be anybody. I follow a guy named Cat Turd on X. I don't know who he is. You can be anybody. It's his name. I don't know what he is. Anyway, so there's a group called the Minnesota Department of Human Services group that does the thing, whatever. And they put out a rather scathing thing saying we've been yelling and screaming, and whether it's true or not, I have no clue. But this thing goes viral. 37 million views on this thing. And then I get some people on who say that if you're on the fraud committee, a lot of those same people who say they're on that, they've come here. They're saying this. So I've given it some legitimacy, only in that some elected officials say they have talked to these people. I don't know. But that gave it all the role it needed to last night. I'm watching between MSNBC, CNN, and Fox. This was the top of all their news stories every hour. But on the Star and Trib today, Trump's garbage comments threatened the GOP in their election. I'm like, running defense for him? Is that okay to say? How is that the story in Minnesota? Unless you're saying, well, we covered it already. We covered everything else except the garbage comment. Yeah, maybe.
Right. I mean, they could say that. I mean, I guess the new take on it would be like to cover the fact that other people are covering it, which is a weird media.
That's a weird angle.
That's a legitimate story. Okay. I get that. But I mean, I guess that's the frustrating part for me. Like it's a legitimate story. You should cover it. You should tweet it out. If the president wants to repost those things, totally legitimate stuff. But then it's the whole just doubling down on the whole, community of Somali, which is just not true. And
and I started with that. I disagree with that. But let me ask you this, because the story to me today, and this has got to get in your wheelhouse, you and the rest of the senators and representatives. If Donald Trump does what Donald Trump and his people are going to say, they have that cabinet meeting, and they're going to possibly stop the SNAP payments to the states that won't give us the SNAP names, the data for it. Well, that's got to get you upset. You're going to have to get and find some money for that. The education department, if you don't follow Title IX, these guys are coming with every hammer they own, including the DOJ coming in to see if there's any wrongdoing amongst others. Don't we have to get ready for that? If they start canceling the money that comes into the state, don't you have to talk about that? What do we do with that? Sure. Even if he's just being a blowhard, he's just saying it. But okay, but if he does it, what happens?
Right. I mean, we have been talking about that, we talked about that in the spring last year. And so when we were, thinking about how we're going to craft our budget, thinking ahead to that this year is still a surplus, the next year out, and they're releasing the budget numbers here in just a little bit today too.
Yeah.
Talking about the future, we have a sizable few $1 billion stashed away in the bank. And so the temptation would be like, well, we could just spend that and our problems are solved. But we said, don't touch that money, because if something happens with the federal government and they cut, I mean, the worst, we were thinking more cuts of Medicare, Medicaid that would I mean, the ones they're talking about are already terrible, but could have been way worse. We're like, we may need that money to shore up some programs such as this. Well, so we do have some money in the bank, I guess. Okay. So, it's not that we've been talking about this certainly all last spring.
Okay. Because, again, the national story, the other one, I'm trying to remember what it was as you're chatting, like they're going to get rid of highway funds, right? Because too many people got CDL licenses in Minnesota that aren't necessary citizens or I mean, I don't know, but again, you're cutting highway funds. It's just more money we got to come up with.
Right. We did not give any CDL licenses out in Minnesota to undocumented people. That's not part of our deal. And I know there was, and this was the thing, we had a big battle about this because there's such a shortage. There's a backlog to get CDL licenses that there was talk of like, we need to go to the whole private sector and let them do this and run the tests. And clearly, nationally now, we're finding out that that has been a problem, that they're
Yeah.
putting people through who maybe aren't qualified. So luckily, Minnesota, we haven't gone down that path of
Well,
the
why
private.
was that? Why would that not have been said then? That was a news story. They came out and said like, was it 30% of CDL licenses were given to non-citizens or something like that? And I'm like, well, that would have been a story. If you're telling me that's not true, then that should be the story the Star Trip should say is
Right.
that was,
I mean, there are other states that seem like maybe they've done that. California,
yeah,
Florida, I don't know.
yeah,
But
but
in
not in Minnesota.
Minnesota, we did allow undocumented folks to get
To
real
get
driver's
regular
license.
license. Yeah.
There's a safety issue there. There's a reduction in hit and runs that goes along with that, which is good. But we did not allow CDL licenses to be
Well, see,
given.
that's why I'm glad you're on the program. These are the things that I'm reading. I'm like, well, that would be a story I want to hear more out of. And it's like, it goes
Why would
nowhere.
you? Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't. I mean, we want. I mean, we're dealing with the fact that there are undocumented people here, a variety of
Yep.
reasons. But the thing we don't, and they're here, and we have to deal with that. But we're not going to make it easier for them to actually take jobs
From somebody, yeah.
that they're not
Understand.
supposed to be doing as undocumented people.
Fair enough. See, that Star Trip, call Mr. Kupec today and talk with him about that. Okay, I got to go to break. When we come back, I'm going to ask you to put your whole "I'm in charge of the Democratic Party" or the Republican Party hat on. You could not. This is like them little. Do you remember go to the circus and like the little car would come out and like 65 clowns would get out and you're like, what in the world? How? That's what it's like. People running for governor in the state of Minnesota. It's like you can't throw a log and not hit one governor candidate coming to knock on your door. You just can't. We'll talk about that and what's going on the Democratic side after this with Senator Rob Kupec on the Al Travis Show.
Chanhassen Dinner Theater's gift cards make perfect holiday gifts because everyone loves the gift of live.
Do you have a closet full of old videos, photos, slides, or films? Regain that space and preserve those memories for future generations. Visit archivinglifemedia.com or call 952-829-8018. See how safe and simple it is to digitize all your media. Gain peace of mind knowing that all those important memories will be saved and can be seen and shared again. Do it today. Check out archivinglifemedia.com or give them a call, 952-829-8018.
as in alligator. L also in alligator. But it's not alligator. It's the Al Travis Show.
And we've got Senator Rob Kupec on with us. Senator, let's start with the Republican side because I think it's a lot more boring. I think we're up to 12 folks. Well, you laugh. We're up to 12 folks who want the governor's job. I'm like, is that Senate job so horrible that you don't want to travel? I mean, why don't we have a half a dozen going for that? No one's going for the AG. I mean, somebody is, but we don't have 12 people go. I suppose you got to be a lawyer. That'd help. Okay, I'm out. Auditor doesn't sound like a lot of fun, but, my point is everybody wants to be governor and everybody is in. We'll weed that out. Is it because, in your opinion, I ask, blood in the water, there's like sharks. It's like, okay, first, you don't generally get three-peats, right? So that would be even if all the fraud stuff, you don't generally get a three-peat, so that would make him, and then you look, I don't know, education funding's up, but the numbers are down. This would be a race if it wasn't for all of this. Is that why there's that many in there? This is an amazing number.
There's two things I think. I think you're right on all of those counts that people get in, and why I think fewer people are running for Senate. Why would you want to go to Washington, D.C., where it's impossible to get almost anything done? But in a state, as a governor, you could have an impact and actually get something done.
I get that, but I can name the two biggest stars on your side going for that seat. You got Craig and the Lieutenant Governor Flanagan. They want it. So there's something to. My point is, it's like, that's some second-class job being your senator. But your side intrigues me, okay? Your side does. The national news comes out against Walz. Walz talked about he's going to raise money and, because he got all. I got to think that's got to hurt fundraising. I don't know, but I presume the national fundraiser is let's wait and see how this works out. So that's got to hurt. This side keeps saying, they're trying to pull a Biden on them, pull the support out from under him and let somebody else run. Is that a thought on your end? I know you were in the paper discussing that. Well, I don't remember your quote, but that you were in the article saying that this could be a drag on the ticket if Walz can't win his third term. Is this a way the group's trying to get rid of him?
I don't think so. I think, I think he's, first of all, when you're the incumbent governor, you have some
record
within the right, but within the party apparatus, you have some power. And people are like, it takes a lot to knock off an incumbent within your own party, and so I think that would hesitate, people to do that. He has a sizable, and the part of the whole. I hate all of the money in politics. And we talk way too much about it, but it's a fact.
It's real.
It's real, so you can't ignore it. But he has raised a lot of money already. I mean, he's not hurting for campaign funds. He's got plenty. So I think that also. That also scares off people. You're like, wow. Yeah. If I were to go up against that, how do I match that in fundraising?
My own party, and he's got the money. Right. Yeah. But how about on the, and maybe you don't want to speak to this, I don't want to put you in a bad spot, but on the other side, like go to the Senate side. I think the Craig and Liebling fight is very interesting, was before all this started. I thought it was interesting because the lieutenant governor, because I think she wanted to be governor, but okay, you're going to go back, I'll go over here. Craig moves up. I think that's just an interesting fight. It just is to me. But now, and it hasn't started yet, but watch it, Liebling has, not Liebling.
Peggy Flanagan.
Flanagan, I'm sorry. Thank you. Yeah, Flanagan. Right. She excites me because, now wait a minute, she hasn't really been in the national news with all the rest. This is Walz, but Craig at some point is going to pull the, hey, she was second in command. This fight, and I'm sorry for getting the name wrong, Flanagan. This one excites me. This one will be fun to watch from the outside.
I suppose it would be. On the record, I've come out supporting Angie Craig, so I jumped on the bandwagon early on. But
give her that piece of advice from me. She got to be tagging her as soon as possible. That's when it's going to, it hits the boat.
I think we're, certainly at this point of, it's it's got to be hanging out there. I mean, when you at this point of a campaign, I would think you would not want to, everybody still wants to be nice and chummy, and because you never know how things are going to play out, but
that's what got my attention.
Close and the rubber hits the road, all the negative stuff comes out of everywhere.
Negatives. So. This is so funny because this is why it really hits me. All this stuff is going on with your boss. She is still lieutenant governor. All this stuff is going on, and he's on national news trying to protect, say this and this. It is a church mouse time from her campaign. She hasn't come out and said, no, we're fine, we didn't do it. You haven't heard her speak, Flanagan, since all this came out. And that's why it's almost the void is louder than if she had come up and said something.
I think she's doing some media up my way today. So she
is. Oh,
yeah, I think she is. I think she's up here today.
Okay, because I haven't heard all the national news I watch. None of them said, "Hey, what about Lieutenant Governor?" You haven't heard a thing. I gotta fly. I love the fact you're coming on this on a regular basis. I appreciate you being honest with me, and I hope we're giving you a fair shot to get your side out and your thoughts. I appreciate you a ton.
Sure, absolutely. It's a blast. It's very cathartic for me, so I appreciate it.
Love it. Go have yourself a good day. Stay indoors. Right. Let's just wait until the good warm weather breaks. Fair enough?
Yeah, I got to run some errands. What do you do?
You wait, or you get a DoorDash and make that poor guy go do something. Back after this with more on the Al Travis Show.